Hello. Well, this isn't the most recent story, but I still have to deal with it because of my love of books. It's to do with a letter of rejection sent by a librarian to the First Lady of the USA, Melania Trump. Let's have a look at it, or part of it at any rate. Dear Mrs. Trump, thank you for the 10 Dr. Seuss titles that you sent my school library. Well, that's unobjectionable enough. Sent second day air, no less. That must have been expensive. Does anyone get a teensy tiny hint of cattiness here? Yes? No? Well, perhaps I'm reading too much into it. And in any case, what does the postage have to do with 10 Dr. Seuss books? Maybe we'll work that one out later. Let's press on. Our beautiful and diverse student body is made up of children from all over the world, from different socioeconomic statuses, with a spectrum of gender expressions and identities, with a range of abilities and a varied racial, ethnic and religious backgrounds. As Devon Tracy would put it, virtue, virtue! And as I would put it, patronising cow. Now, in the interests of sanity, I'm going to do what this verbal diarrheatician is obviously incapable of doing. That is, I'm going to cut down the text to something manageable, because this was a very long letter. Very long indeed. From a person who is obviously a sophisticated rhetorician, completely inebriated with the exuberance of her own verbosity. Let's proceed. My students were interested in reading your enclosed letter, I'll bet it was shorter than this one, and impressed with the beautiful book plates with your name and the indelible White House stamp. Indelible? Meaning what? That you cannot excise from history the existence of the Trump family? What print isn't indelible? To continue. However, we will not be keeping the titles for our collection. I'd like to respectfully offer my explanation. Respectfully? Respectful is when you accept a gift given in good faith with a polite thank you. If you don't like the person, it doesn't have to be effusive, but it does have to be courteous. To clarify for you, courteous in this case means acceptance with good grace. Cambridge, Massachusetts is an amazing city with robust social programming, a responsive city government, free all-day kindergarten and well-paid teachers. Relatively speaking, many of us can't afford to live in the city in which we teach. What does Cambridge's amazingness have to do with 10 Dr. Seuss books? What does the social programming have to do with 10 Dr. Seuss books? What does the city government and the kindergarten have to do with 10 Dr. Seuss books? And for the absolute cherry on the cake, Cambridge has well-paid teachers, which would include her. Oops! We can't appear too well off, can we? Sounds like privilege. Backtrack. Let's shoehorn in a disclaimer. Many can't afford to live in the city in which they teach. There, that ought to do the trick. And what possible reference could that have to do with 10 Dr. Seuss books? All it does say is I'm not as rich as you, Mrs. Trump, so I am at liberty to insult you freely. Or liberally, in the terminology she probably uses to describe herself. Let's carry on. Yearly per pupil spending in Cambridge is well over $20,000. Our city's values are such that, given a huge range in the socio-economic status of our residents, we believe that each and every child, like a snowdrop, deserves the best free education possible and are working hard to make that a reality. This offers our school and the district a lot of privilege for pedagogy to foster high standards of excellence. Well then, don't work so hard, you silly bitch. Even so, we still struggle to close the achievement gap, retain teachers of colour, and dismantle the systemic white supremacy in our institution. But hell, we test well, and in the end it appears that data and not children are what matters. Okay, they spend a lot on their pupils. Some of the pupils are poor, and the school nevertheless cannot close the achievement gap, keep their black teachers, and rein back on the white privilege. So what is it, Miss Phipps? What's her name? Is your school riddled with racism or not? Are the pupils dunces or not? Does it cater to minorities or not? Is it full of white privilege or not? And what does this have to do with 10 bleeding Dr. Seuss books? To continue, so my school doesn't have a need for these books. But she just said that the school has children from all sorts of backgrounds, rich and poor. Don't the poor pupils need the books? Or are they so privileged by being in such a great school they don't deserve an education? Another fact is that Dr. Seuss's illustrations are steeped in racist propaganda, caricatures, and harmful stereotypes. Well, I would hardly have believed it, especially since Miss Phipps Thingy was probably brought up on Seuss books herself. I can think of no better gift for children than books. It was a wonderful gesture, if one that could have been better thought out. And Melania Trump is obviously a woman who doesn't think. How else could she have made it from a peasant burg in Slovenia through an international fashion community famous for its competitiveness and bitchiness to be the wife of one of the richest men in the world? I'm talking pre-president. You don't do that on looks alone, darling. Now, a more educated woman than me might refer to Miss Phipps, what's-her-name, as a vacca stulta by this time. I wish I could, but I don't know any Latin. Books can be a powerful way to learn about and experience the world around us. They help build empathy and understanding. Miss Phipps Thingy, you are surrounded by books for a living. How come they didn't have an effect on your empathy and understanding? Too much Dr. Seuss? Nah, I rather think not. I'm attaching a list of 10 books that I hope will offer you a window into the lives of the many children affected by the policies of your husband's administration. As if Melania Trump is a woman who's never seen poverty or deprivation. If Miss Phipps had seen a tenth of what Melania Knaus must have seen when she was growing up in an apartment block in Svinica, or however it's pronounced, in the Socialist Federation of Yugoslavia. Trump speaks English, French, Italian, German, and Serbo-Croatian, as well as her native Slovenian. I'll bet she had to swallow a lot of books to do that. And I encourage you to reach out to your local librarian for more recommendations. Having received a letter like that, I'm likely to steer clear of librarians for the rest of my life. Miss Phipps Whatnot, when I was at school, Everyone made fun of the librarian. She was supposed to be the one who couldn't teach, so they gave her a job stamping books. I said to my schoolmates, no, a librarian is an educated person who has to have a lot of general knowledge so that they can offer help to all sorts of people in all sorts of fields of research. It was hard work. But I think I convinced them, at least some of them, that librarians were the keepers and the guardians of a sacred flame of knowledge. Then, when I was myself a teacher, I found that many of the other teachers had the same opinion about the librarian as most of my schoolmates had all those years before. And I found myself defending him again, using similar arguments: keeper of the flame, guardian of research, educational resource, and so on and so forth. Now, Phipps Doodah, you've blasted all my good work out of the water. Thanks a bundle.